Chapter 7. Still half-dazed by the strange dream, he looked around him. He'd flung his duvet across the room and spilt whiskey he had all over his legs, which explained the wet part of his dream. The beeping continued. His eyes tried to adjust but couldn't. The only light available was the building's black lights, and the glow from the corner of his eye instantly recognisable as the fire alarm exit arrow. Fire alarm! That's what the beeping is, thought Zack as he quickly got up off the sofa, rubbing his elbow. The emergency lighting had flooded the room with black light, and as Zack looked around bleary-eyed, he made out the special ultraviolet painted arrows that glowed with the black light to prepare for such an event. He got up and followed the glowing arrows on the floor to the front door of his apartment and down the stairs towards the fire door. Outside were several disgruntled people, all standing by the designated fire point. One wearing a dressing gown. Another man was bare-chested, wearing only a pair of jeans. The woman and her child, who lived next door to Zack, were there too, along with many others. The caretaker was looking at a tablet and counting the heads of everyone assembled. After approximately 20 minutes, the fire crew arrived, and the chief confirmed yet another failure by the dodgy fire alarm system as the grumpy tenants went back inside, while one or two stayed and had stern words with the caretaker. Zack climbed the stairs, the black light still illuminating the safety paint arrows, and went inside his apartment. Flopping onto his bed and kicking his shoes off, he rolled over to go back to sleep when something caught his eye. A glow of writing on the front of his journal. He could hardly believe his eyes, and as he picked up the book he stared at it, his luminettes trying to focus in the darkness. It was then that he read the words, property of Professor Eric Mullins. Intrigued by his discovery, he opened the cover and looked inside. The pages of the book were full of glowing orange drawings. Lots of schematics and technical stuff, diary entries and more. He read, excited and infused with what he had found. Zack scanned through the book for a moment, then read from page 1. He checked the time and yawned. 4:03 a.m. After a while, his eyes drifted, and the words started to merge into each other. The more he tried to read, the heavier his eyelids became, until he succumbed to the land of Zed. His eyelids closed all the way, and he drifted off to sleep again. The pattering of the rain coming from the speakers on the fake windows woke Zack up. He stirred and remembered the events of the previous evening. The delivery, the woman, the book, the eerie, glowing writing. The book! Where was the book? He fumbled around the side of his bed and found it on the floor, wedged between the bed and the table. Picking it up, he noticed the eerie, glowing writing wasn't there, and as he thumbed through the book itself, all he saw were the journal entries from when he was younger. Annoyed at himself that he'd probably been dreaming again, he put the book down on the bed, went to the kitchen and made himself a cup of coffee. Yawning, he walked through to the spare bedroom office, poured a slug of whiskey into his coffee and set his mug down on the desk. The office was a pretty simple place, a chair to sit on next to a desk with a laptop, and a curtain along one wall dividing the room in half, with a fitness room on the other side of the curtain containing an exercise bike and wall-mounted holovision that showed scenery going along as he rode on his bike. He caught himself staring into space, half wondering about the eerie writing dream, and trying to remember what was on the front cover of the journal. "HoloNet on," he said out loud, and the small bar on the desk shot out a laser QWERTY keyboard in front of him. while two beams of light, similar to the holovision box, met in the middle to show a rotating globe with the words Web 3.0 around the circumference, and the familiar Devandertech logo written on the panel. Devandertech. Search. The HoloNet screen showed a big magnifying glass to one side, over the rotating globe where the moon would be, and the hollow Earth showed its rotation as if awaiting the next instruction. Search for glow-in-the-dark ink. The magnifying glass stayed where it was as the Earth rotated faster, and a couple of seconds later, a video somersaulted into the screen in front of the globe. Not the right one, he thought to himself. After it played, Zack saw millions of results. Search for... The results window closed, and the globe hovered, frozen in midair, with a magnifying glass to one side, as he racked his brain trying to figure out the right search term to use. Search for invisible ink, Zack commanded the machine. The globe spun again, and a few options flipped into view. Scanning the results, he pointed at the floating icon with his finger and went to the museoonline.com holo site for results about papers, inks and more. The museoonline.com holo site looked just like a book, and he recognised the swipe interface straight away. Waving his hand from left to right, he gestured to the machine, and the website showed an animation of a hand turning a page. On the right-hand side of the book, he saw some lettered tabs marked from A to Z. Poking his finger at the hologram, he stabbed at the letter I and spotted lots of articles about the history of inks. He read an interesting article, not related, bookmarked it, and swiped upward to suggestions of papers, pens, writing, cryptography, calligraphy and more. Ooh, cryptography. Zack's eyes lit up as he poked at the link and watched videos of the history of cryptography, spies, encryption and other exciting stuff. He had done research before when looking for books, journals and other protected sources for the shop. But none of it had been this exciting. This was lots of fun, and he was learning so much and quite thrilled with what he had found. As he stared at the screen, he learned about different invisible inks, from the stuff that children would use, like writing with lemon juice and warming the paper up to view the result, to advanced techniques about the way the banks used to watermark their money to prevent counterfeiting, a crime that was no longer an issue since the government banned the use of coinage and notes, and ID fobs were the mandatory thing. He drifted a little off topic by watching a few videos recommended at the bottom of the article about the greatest robberies back in the day and the protection devices that banks used when transporting large loads of cash. Zack soon got back on topic, reading about the advances made with a special invisible ink that exploded all over the thief and the money, only viewable under a special light. He was about to dismiss the article when a word caught his gaze. Orange. He read more. Perhaps this was it, the orange invisible ink in his dream, and, as he investigated further, he discovered it. The revolution that blew his mind. Tucked right at the bottom of the page was a short article that read, "Back in the year 2012, criminal investigators used special dye packs that exhibited a controlled explosion of invisible ink that glowed orange under black light. To protect the money from damage, it gave authorities a surefire way to catch the thief by shining a black light on the cash, giving off a bright orange glow. rendering the culprit recognisable and the cash still in a usable state, saving the insurance companies untold millions in payouts. He read that the company which sold these special inks had to change the purpose of their product. When the trees became a protected species and the paper money faded out. To adapt to the loss of invisible ink money protection, the company changed the colour of their inks to green and repurposed it for safety with fire protection and evacuation systems. Hence its name, FPE Paint, or EVAC Green, as the company called it. He thought about it, and suddenly, blacklight! He said it so loudly in his head that other people would have heard it, leaking from his nostrils if they'd been sitting next to him. As his brain went through the events of that night, he remembered the fire alarm had gone off. Nothing special about that. It was always some annoying teen or punk who thought it was funny. But what was important was that the safety protocols switched the black lights on when the alarm sounded. In the black light, the green safety paint would glow to show the way to the exits. Immediately he got out of his chair and went to his toolkit with its specialist tools for antique books. The glues, bookbinding materials, special papers, inks, and finally the thing he'd been looking for, his little torch with ultraviolet LED and blacklight. He blew the dust off it and switched it on. It glowed with a dim purple. Grabbing the journal, he opened the book and pointed the purple glow at the blank page. And the words lit up bright orange, along with drawings and other notes. "Yes!" he shouted in excitement. He put the handle of the torch in his mouth and held the book with both hands. As he turned the first page, he read, "Dear Zach." Surprised there was nothing else on the first page, curiosity got the better of him. He flipped the page, and there was only one word on it. If. He stared at the page in disbelief. Had he missed something? He shook the torch, switched it off and back on again. Nothing changed. The word if was the only word on the page. He turned the page again. You are reading this. You have your torch in your mouth. The date is the 22nd of May 2042 and the time is roughly 8:12 a.m. Zach checked his watch. What the? How? Oh, crap, I'm late for work. He triple-clicked the ID fob for his taxi and changed his shirt.